Let me step out of that story for a moment and speak to you directly, the way I spoke to myself the night I first put pen to paper for this book. My name is Sasani Eldis, and I did not write Seven Gods, One Man to entertain you with a tale about an old healer in a forgotten kingdom, even though that tale is real to me in every way that matters because I wrote it to hand you a mirror, one that shows you something you already are but may have forgotten how to see. Here is where I want to begin with you, in the same place I began the book itself, with one simple and enormous question, and that question is, what is human? It sounds almost too plain to ask out loud because we assume we already know the answer. We call ourselves human every day without a second thought. We fill out forms, we introduce ourselves, we carry the word around like a name tag. We stopped reading a long time ago, but somewhere between being born and being told who we are, something in us went quiet. We picked up other names along the way, boy and girl, this tribe and that tribe, this religion and that title, and every one of those names became a wall. We built brick by brick around the one word that mattered most, which was simply human. I am not against those names. They serve us, they help us organize a complicated world, but I began to notice that we had started worshiping the walls instead of remembering what they were built around, and that noticing is where this whole book was born. There is a truth I return to again and again in these pages, and I want to hand it to you plainly right now. The truth is that everything is consciousness. Everything you have ever seen, heard, felt, known, thought, or even failed to notice is consciousness wearing a different outfit. I know that can sound like a riddle the first time you hear it, so let me try to make it feel like something you can hold in your hand. Picture a puzzle spread out across a table, 1,000 separate pieces, each one looking like it belongs to a different picture entirely. One piece shows a fragment of sky, another shows a piece of a tree, another shows nothing but a smear of color you cannot place, and if you only ever look at the pieces one at a time, you could convince yourself they have nothing to do with each other. But the moment enough of those pieces come together, the separateness disappears, and what emerges is one complete picture that was always there, waiting underneath the illusion of scattered parts. That is what I mean when I say man consists of the trees, the water, the rocks, and they all consist of man in return. We were never as separate as our habits of thinking convinced us we were. I wrote this book because I believe most of us are walking around as disused humans, and I want to be careful with that phrase because I do not mean broken, and I do not mean lesser. I mean unopened, like a room in your own house that you have simply never walked into, filled with furniture you paid for but never sat on. You already carry everything this book talks about, the senses that let you touch the world, the soul that lets you feel it, the spirit that connects you to something larger than any single lifetime. None of it needs to be earned or downloaded from somewhere outside of you. It only needs to be noticed and finally put to use. If you came here looking for magic, I promise you there is magic in these pages, but it is not the kind that lets you fly or vanish into thin air. It is the far quieter and far more available magic of a human being who finally lives from full awareness instead of from habit. And once you taste that kind of magic, you stop wanting the other kind. I want you to hold on to something as we move through this series together, and it is this. When I describe seven gods living inside one man, I am not asking you to worship anything outside yourself. I am asking you to recognize the forces that were already given to you at the very start. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, the soul that gathers all of it into meaning, and the spirit that was never actually born and will never actually die. Every single one of those forces has been doing its work in you since before you could speak, and most of us have simply never been introduced to them properly, the way you might live for years next door to someone remarkable without ever learning their name. So here is my invitation to you, and I mean it as sincerely as I meant every line of this book: slow down. At the same time you take this in, do not rush past these ideas the way we rush past most things in a noisy world. Sit with each one the way you would sit with a friend telling you something important, because underneath the story of Dr. Highwater and underneath every chapter that follows, there is one truth I am trying to hand back to you. It is that you were never ordinary, you were only unopened. In the episodes ahead, we will walk through each of those seven forces one at a time, slowly, patiently, the way I wish someone had walked me through them the first time I went looking for who I really was. For now, I only ask you to carry this one thought with you when you close this video. Everything you have called yourself until today was only the costume, and underneath every costume you have ever worn, there has always been one unchanging truth quietly waiting, and that truth is you. Thank you for spending this time with me. I am Sasani Eldis, and this has been One Hand Dharma. Stay close for what comes next, because we are only just beginning to open the door